There we go. So welcome, and let's talk about gap years as a whole first. So gap years are rising in popularity across Canada and around the world. It's something that was very, very popular in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, something that was really kind of commonplace and a rite of passage almost. But here in North America, it never really took off in the same way. But what we've seen over the last about 20 years that we've been working in the gap year field is that it continues to grow and grow as we gain a better understanding of what this is. This isn't necessarily just a time off to sit on the couch and do nothing, which is sometimes the fear. This is a time of growth and discovery and figuring out who you are, figuring out what you want in life, figuring out just so many things. So we really look at the gap year not only as a time to rest and rejuvenate, but also as a developmental opportunity, a developmental opportunity and a tool for whatever you might need, whether that is financial stability, whether that is developing new skills, whether that is figuring out what you want to do with your life. This time at this stage in a young person's life can be so transformative. And instead of just always stepping on the accelerator and pushing forward, regardless of what else is going on in our lives, can sometimes be detrimental. So it's really up to the family to sit and think about, is this the right step for my family, for my young person, and what is that going to look like? So we are the experts in the gap year field. This is all we do, working with young people to help them design a gap year that makes sense for them, because each and every one of you is unique. Each and every one of you, your gap year is going to look like something different. And so we here want to make sure that we are supporting you along the way and doing it in a way that it's not going to be a wasted year, that you're not going to fall off the bandwagon and never go back to school, or just kind of live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life. Really, our job here is to help you build something that you're going to love, help you execute it, stay accountable, and help you to recognize all of the growth that happens over the course of the year. Now, in our conversations, first of all, we offer free 30-minute calls to all families. So if you haven't booked one, you are more than welcome to do that. You can do that through our website under the Contact Us link. But in our calls, we are getting more and more parents of neurodivergent youth saying, hey, what's up? This sounds like a good idea, but I'm a little bit nervous. And in past years and in this year, we have lots of neurodivergent youth that are participating in our programs and are having incredible times. We do see some trends in these folks. When they come to us, sometimes they're burnt out. It's really hard existing in a neurotypical world and checking all the boxes and doing all the things that the neurotypical system has set up for you to do. So we do see a high level of burnout, whether that's academic burnout or social burnout. And so kind of taking a pause can make sense for those folks. What else do we see? We see social anxiety coming up a lot, just a fear of being around new people all the time and really feeling the effects. For some people, it's partly due to the pandemic. For others, that's just part of who they are. And so how do we learn to navigate that? We get folks that feel maybe not quite ready, or parents identifying that their young person might not be quite ready for that transition into post-secondary, whatever that might look like. So just really being aware of that readiness, because being pushed into something you're not ready for can be really, really challenging. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. We also know that our young people, and I think looking at the chat and how many of you are parents this afternoon, really have really supportive parents that are here wanting the best for their young person and wanting to do it to the best of their ability, to do it quote unquote right. And just knowing that you're here today gathering information, you are already doing it right. You are already seeking out the resources and asking the right questions. So give yourself props, give yourself a pat on the back. Proud of you. You're doing it. You're doing all the things. And we want to be here to continue to support you as you discover and put together that gap year plan. But you are not here to listen to me ramble on. We have an expert in the house. I'm not going to say too much because I saw her presentation. I know she's going to tell you all the details about herself. But Anika is here joining me from Blue Sky Learning. And I'm going to turn it over to her, or to them, pardon me. And I will make sure that you can see her screen, and I will be here in the chat, and Dana will also be here in the chat. So if there are questions, please feel free to send them over there. We'll take a look and answer them either in the chat, or we will make sure there's time at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So sit back, relax, pull out your notebook, get all of your everything you need, your little snacks, because we're gonna jump into some really, really great content. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, Anika.
Hey, hello. All right, let me get this shared screen situation first. All righty. Perfect. Can I get a wave from some folks to make sure that everyone can see it? Okay, lovely. All right. Thank you so much, all of the folks, for joining me here today. I'm really excited to share this presentation with you. As you can see, I had quite a bit of fun putting it together, so I hope that you enjoy the visuals as well. Okay, so this is what I intend on doing today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. I'm a big believer in context, and I also tend to use a lot of my own lived experience to inform the work that I do. So I want to, give you a lay of the land that way. And then the two main things, the main thing in the middle that I'll be talking about is activities that you can do to make the most of your gap year, right? So like Michelle already talked about why a gap year can be really beneficial for a number of different categories and groups of people. So specifically from my lens, I'm taking a look at what kind of activities would be helpful for our neurodivergent folks to go through. And as you can see, of course, anyone can go and Google, like, what should I do during a gap year? And Google will give you many lists of things to do. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on how to figure out more of a vision in terms of how you want to grow during that gap year. Last but not least, I'm going to also take a look, share with you some of the resources that are accessible to you. And part of why that's so important is that I want to normalize the practice of seeking support and practicing the skills of seeking support, using support, and following through, because that's not something that is verbalized, right? Oftentimes you may be expected to use resources or be expected to know what they are or look for them. So what I want to normalize is the whole practice of what it means to go and find help, right? All right. So starting off, a little bit about me as promised. All right, so my name is Anika. I use they, she pronouns. I am currently situated in North York, Ontario, which is also the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and Haudenosaunee, as well as most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. I am part of the Chinese diaspora. I'm very visibly Asian. I'm also first generation in Canada, so my parents were not born here. I was first in my family to be born here, as well as first in my family to go to post-secondary. And specifically for myself, I am also neurodivergent. However, I did not find out that I was neurodivergent until much later in life. And so because I identified as late diagnosed ADHD, for me, a lot of my reflections come from hindsight, thinking back to when I was a young person who was clearly already neurodivergent. I just didn't know that that was the way in which I was different. And to be totally honest, in my experience of creating this presentation, I thought a lot about how I personally went straight from high school to university. But deep down, I knew that that wasn't right for me. And I'll share some stories along the way as to like how that manifested for me. What you don't see on the screen here, but I'll also share, is that I do have a background working in higher education. I spent nearly a decade working in student support services. And one of the other things that's related to what Michelle was saying is that we have this expectation as to what it means to do life. And that definitely translates into the expectation of how to do education, right? It's so not only so normalized, but almost like put on a bit of a pedestal that you have to go to post-secondary directly after high school, and that there's a certain way that that needs to look. Having been on the post-secondary side, working predominantly with first-year students, there are so many students who do go partway through their first semester before they realize this is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Not that it was necessarily the wrong decision or the wrong choice or that they shouldn't be in higher education. It's also back to what Michelle was saying. It's like maybe it wasn't the right time, wasn't the right place, wasn't the right program. Those are Michelle's words, right? And I know that a number of people who do go through the CanGap program are people who have actually started post-secondary and maybe decided that that's not what they want to be doing, right? And not to say that making that decision partway through university is not okay, but part of the reason why it is so important to me to be doing this presentation is to give a voice to that like normal, what does it mean to go to university narrative out there. There has been a counter narrative of gappers for a long time in other countries, and it does exist in Canada and the US as well. It's just not as loud. So today I am here to give more of a voice to that, to be a little bit louder, to show you that it is a totally valid choice, and for some folks, maybe a better choice. All right. Okay. So I already talked a little bit about this, but in terms of what my goals are, again, it is easy enough for someone to go on Google and like look up a list of things that they can do. There's probably even checklists to help you plan your gap year. So I really want to talk about the why behind what we're doing, right? So my first goal is trying to provide some semblance of a structure to something that feels abstract and nebulous, right? And this is what really feeds into the uncertainty behind making a decision to take a gap year. Because, it's very obvious that if you choose to go straight into post-secondary or whatever the next step is, it is very clear that oh, can I just get folks to mute their microphones? Thank you so much. So it's very clear that a structure will be provided for you, right? And that's not so much the case with a gap year. And so because for so many years, literally, pre-K to grade 12, you get structure provided to you. And so to not have that 100% feeds into that feeling that this is nebulous, uncertain, and if it's out of our control, then it must not be good. So we are going to normalize the challenges that come with a less structured experience, but also make some connections to other things that are important to us, right? Because yes, structure is important, but it's not the only thing that's important. And then my second goal is to, again, this is a short 1 hour presentation, less than 1 hour, because I do want to give time for questions at the end. So I'm not gonna talk about all the possibilities today, right? And that would not be feasible to do in this period of time. But what I hope that I can do is inspire your creative juices and inspire you to brainstorm and think about all the different possibilities that could be existing, again, outside of this prescribed norm of what it means to transition out of high school. All right, so to the meaty part of the presentation, what to do with a gap year, right? It's a lot of time. What do we even need to do? So I'm going to start here by talking about the vision, right? This is the piece of a gap year that, once I talk about it, you're going to be like, wow, that makes so much sense. Obviously, we should do that, right? But when people think of a gap year and they try to stereotype it, people tend to think of the things that what Michelle was pointing out. It's like, wow, you're just going to have a year of doing nothing. And if it was truly a year of doing nothing, that would be a year with no vision, right? So that's why I want to start with the vision. And I also talk about visioning as a practice because this might be one of the first times that your young person or the young person who is in the audience with us might be the first time you've been asked to do something like this, right? And you might have heard a vision from how schools or companies or programs, they say, yeah, this is our mission, this is what we aim to do. That's what the word really means, is what are we aiming to do? And it in itself is an activity, right? Oftentimes we think about having a vision, but I feel like that just really cuts out a big part of the work. Creating a vision is a whole activity, right? Schools, companies, they go on whole day, even whole weekend, maybe week-long retreats to isolate that goal setting, visioning experience, right? Because it's so important to them that they want what they do to be focused and to actually achieve what they want. But in order to know any of those things, you have to spend time actually thinking about it, actually reflecting about it. And maybe you end up journaling. Maybe you end up creating a mind map. Maybe you end up, talking to a number of people who are important in your life, maybe doing a series of informational videos. And maybe you're like me, maybe I like doing a lot of data gathering. I try to see all the different perspectives, and then I try to figure out, okay, of all those perspectives, what do I resonate with? And so while there are different ways to go about in creating a vision, here's some example questions that I think are really important to ask. And you look at these and they seem like simple questions, like, what are my values? What are my needs? But when you really sit down and think about it, you'll realize, wow, these are actually really hard questions, really big, deep questions. And the really challenging thing about questions like this is that there's no one right answer. For some people, that's nice because in the school environments that we're used to, having the right answer is so very important, right? But that's also what leads us to the path of thinking that, oh, there's one right answer in terms of how to exit high school, which is go to university right away, right? So in the same vein, we are practicing kind of eliminating that one belief, the single belief that there's one right way, and by opening it up to all of the different things that could be valid for you. Visioning is sometimes a collaborative experience, right? So if you are part of the CanGap program and you want to talk to other gappers, this could also be a really great way to kind of bounce ideas off of other people, maybe hear things that you might not have considered for yourself or you didn't think of yet, but ends up resonating. Sometimes people, when they do their visioning process, they think of their initial answers, and then maybe they spend some time bouncing those ideas off of important people in their life. So their parents or maybe past teachers or mentors that they really look up to, right? And when you get feedback, it's not to say that others' feedback should necessarily shape, who you want to become or what skills you want to develop. But it's also what sometimes you don't know if you actually believe in something until you get challenged by it. Right? This is often an experience that a lot of neurodivergent people experience, right? I'll speak for myself. A lot of times I go through the world just, things that I believe are my norm. And then once I see someone else doing something that is opposite to that maybe challenges that, that's when you feel any sorts of resistance or conflict, that's your body telling you that, oh, I think this might actually be something really important to me, right? And for when I went through high school, when I was in a very structured environment, I was given all of those thoughts, I was given all of those beliefs, and everyone was kind of doing it. So because there wasn't really a lot of challenge or resistance, I kind of just went along with it. And part of the growth that one would want to do in a gap year is to figure out, okay, this is what the rest of society has to offer, but what do I really want? And sometimes those things are not obvious, which is why it takes time to develop a vision. It takes time to recognize what the answers to some of these things are. Visioning can take place throughout the entire year. It could take place just once at the beginning because that's how you want to set your goals. It may take place at other aspects of your life, right? There'll be other times in your life where you may go through transitions where this type of activity would be helpful. So that's why I wanted to talk about the vision first, because it can really set up the plan for you. You'll notice that I didn't tell you what does a vision look like or how does a vision look like. Those are much deeper topics that, I want to just give you a little sprinkle at the beginning to consider. But there's so many different ways of doing it. And I really want to normalize that there's no one right way to do visioning. But the end goal is you want to be able to set the scene for the rest of your gap year activities to provide that structure for yourself. Okay. So the other thing that I want to right off the bat talk about is that there are going to be challenges that one experiences during a gap year, right? All of the great things that come with, the quote unquote, just easy or obvious step of going straight to higher education. Yeah, once you move from one education system to another, there will be lots of structures provided for you. Navigating through them is another thing, which can be challenging, right? But at the very end of the day, at least it gives you a sense of structure. You don't have to do all of that yourself. So one of the challenges of existing and experiencing with a gap year is that there is going to be a lack of structure. For some folks, that could be very freeing. Perhaps you found the structures and routines that were expected of you through high school very rigid, right? Almost suffocating for some people. They find that they're not able to be their full selves as a result of that structure. So there's pros to that there's some freedom and space to decide when you want to do things, what you want to do, how you want to do them. But for many, many folks, myself included, a lack of structure sometimes can be very intimidating. The good news is you don't have to go through that sense of lack of structure by yourself, right? That's why organization like CanGap exists, so that there is support along the way to help you identify what kind of structures would be helpful for you and how to implement those structures. Something that I did not mention earlier is that as a part of my coaching with Blue Sky is that, that's a lot of what I do with my clients is I talk to them to figure out what are the challenges that they experience and what are the needs that they have to try to help them implement for themselves types of structures that are specific to them. So that's, if I could turn this challenge into an opportunity, that's what I would see it as, because there is no one structure that works for everyone under the sun. But there definitely is a structure or structures that's going to be better suited for you. So that is a huge opportunity during a gap year experience that gives you the space to figure out what is the structure that's best for me, right? When I am not dictated by an external structure, what's going to help me? What comes with that challenge is also, I spoke about this earlier, the uncertainty and anxiety, right? And this might exist even if you plan all the plans within your gap year, right? So I really want to normalize that these feelings are just feelings, but also because we're experiencing them, it doesn't feel great, right? Sometimes it can make you question whether or not you make the right decision, especially if you have peers that you do see going the more traditional route and they are doing the post-secondary things that they said they were going to do. However, when I say that they're just feelings, I do not mean that in a dismissive way, like, okay, just let it go, they're just feelings. It's in the sense that they are similar to all the feelings you've ever had in your lifetime, right? All of the feelings you've ever had in your lifetime has come, stayed a while, and gone, right? Some come more frequently, some stay a little bit longer, but they are just feelings. But the thing that is actually more important is, what do our feelings tell us about what we need? Because feelings typically don't happen for no reason, right? Especially when you have mixed feelings. It's often because there are multiple competing priorities that you may be conscious or unconscious of. So again, if I may turn this challenge into an opportunity, when we are in a highly structured, highly regimented lifestyle, there might not be a lot of time to evaluate and think about what our feelings are trying to tell us. Having a gap year giving us that extra buffer space, right? Particularly, it's like we know there's been lots of research done on how for many neurodivergent folks, recognizing and naming our feelings can be really tough. So a lot of times we just sit with a lot of discomfort, not knowing what our feelings are trying to tell us. And feelings and emotions carry important information that can help us do things like make good decisions, contribute to our vision, right? It might also keep us away from options that are not actually going to work out for us. So giving ourselves the time and space to really experience the uncertainty, be uncomfortable with the anxiety, can actually be really helpful. Another challenge, which is so real, and I'm going to talk about ways to combat it in a slide later on. Social isolation is super real, especially if, you know, the majority, if all of your friend group has decided to go to post-secondary and you have chosen to go with a gap year, right? The isolation comes more from the sense that we have spent the majority of our lives, right, pre-K to grade 12, with a cohort of people. You may not be friends with everyone, but the majority of people around you are doing the same things that you are doing. So the isolation more so comes from the fact that you might be doing something that no one else around you has done before, right? Maybe you're also first in your family to try something like this out, right? Or you know, it could be different from that too, right? Maybe you will have a couple of friends or acquaintances or family members who's tried something like this before. So there's all variations across the spectrum, but right now it is just not the thing that most people choose to do, right? I think Michelle had shared with me that about 30% of students choose to take a gap year before going on to post-secondary. While that 30% is a pretty big chunk of people, that's 1/3 of all students, right? When you are sitting, you know, in your home, knowing that this is your experience, maybe you're connecting through people online, maybe you go and try out different experiences, which we'll talk about. For the most part, you don't have a group of people that you're going around with doing these things, right? So recognizing that that's an actual challenge that will come up. So what we want to do is be proactive and implement or introduce different activities to counter some of the effects of the social isolation. The last thing that I want to mention is a challenge is there is often almost guaranteed a perceived loss of academic momentum in some way, shape, or form. It can come from internal, it can come from external sources. And this is where people think like, oh, you know, if you stop high school now, like you're not going to want to study and, you know, you can enroll in university later, but because you've lost that momentum, like you won't be successful in university. As someone who has been on the other side, been on the university side, watching students be so burnt out, continue to be burnt out in their first year, I can tell you that this is a myth. It's a myth. All right. It Where does this myth come from? There are so many different what ifs that we could share together if we wanted to, right? So what I actually want to tell you about is why I specifically put the word perceived on in front of there, because for the people who truly will benefit from a gap year, they actually end up doing much better at their first attempt in university, because what we talked about earlier, they had the time to really get to know themselves, get to know what they need, so then they become better able to meet those needs while being a student, right? Imagine being super burnt out, not knowing how to meet your needs, going into an academic environment that does expect you to be independent and meet your own needs, and then not being able to do it. There is a huge percentage of students who end up leaving university in their first year. And that's the reason, right? Is because, maybe they were not ready. Maybe health-wise or physical or mental, they needed more time to recover from the experience of being in school for the last 12 to 13 years, right? So there's so many different reasons why, just going the traditional route straight from high school to university doesn't work out for a lot of people. That is real, right? I've seen the effects of that. In terms of people losing academic momentum, the way that I think that should be reframed is that maybe they didn't actually like doing academics in that traditional way that they were doing in high school. Maybe the traditional way of doing education in higher education is also not the way that suits them. And the benefit of being able to go through a gap year to get to know, like, what is the style that actually works for me. Because, for example, maybe I've always wanted to go to post-secondary and study, healthcare for, in whatever its variety, right? But there is big differences between going to a very academic theoretical program versus a program that is more vocational skills-based, right? And the people coming out of those programs, can tell you, their experiences of it. But for the folks who never even get the chance to think about what the difference between those two are and what they personally want, they are less likely to make the choice that is better for them. Right? So again, it is a perceived loss of academic momentum. If you are academically inclined, you enjoy studying and learning, you want to find out new knowledge. I am like that. I also enjoy learning. Don't like schoolwork, but I do enjoy learning, right? That academic momentum isn't going to go anywhere because once you start up again, it will still interest you because you like it, right? So again, really just want to name how important that piece is and how misunderstood it is in our society. And also, this is my cat, Maggie, being very upset at the challenges. So yes, that is also the face I would make. Okay, so how do we deal with these challenges that I just mentioned on the previous slide? So I really want to say here is eye on the prize, right? Let's keep our focus on why we really want to do this gap year, why it's going to benefit us. And that truly is the prize coming out of an experience like a gap year. So the first thing that I'll talk about is personal development. All of the different types of things that you can learn about yourself during a gap year is just unmatched to something that you can try to experience during like a more structured experience, like going through post-secondary, right? Not to say that post-secondary doesn't foster personal development, but again, it's highly structured, highly regimented, and it may not align with the type of development that you want to do. The other thing that I'll talk about too is how having that extra time to really allow yourself to like breathe, take a break, and do things on your own pace is also incredible for your mental health, right? So if someone is burnt out and they take a break to recover and find the desire to go to school and study and learn, that is going to be way better on their mental health than someone who is burnt out but forces themselves to go to post-secondary and become more burnt out afterwards. As someone who has been through burnout myself, burnout is incredibly difficult to recover from, right? And many of you might have heard this through other places, but essentially, burnout is when your nervous system becomes so fried that it's actually not able to do its job as well as it had before, right? So our ability to even do everyday things can often be impacted by burnout as well. And so imagine how difficult that would be if you were trying to complete, 4 to 5 courses while in university, and you're also struggling with your mental health because of the fact that you were burnt out before even starting university. I know that is a thing because that is what happened to me. I participated in the IB program when I was in high school. They told me that it would help me practice for the rigor that university requires, and it certainly did. but it also left me burnt out by middle of grade 11. So I went through grade 12 burnt out and was super fried going into university. And if you take a look at my transcripts, you definitely see it reflected there, right? And being, later in life right now, learning about all these things and all these different ways that I could have been taking care of myself, right? I recognize now the value of being able to give yourself space to be able to think and recover, both mentally and physically. There are not many more opportunities like a gap year later in life where you can take up space for yourself to learn about yourself, to do personal development things, to acquire skills, also in a way where you are still afforded a lot of support from your family, right? From your support systems that you have not left, from supports like if you decide to participate in CanGap. It's such a unique opportunity to be able to have space to try these things and have all of these supports around you. And I also mentioned skill acquisition, right? Obviously, there's a time like during the gap year, you can enroll in all sorts of programs to build your skills for your resume, right? Particularly if there's certain fields that you want to study or participate in the future. But I specifically put an image of someone cracking an egg here because skill acquisition isn't just about academic or professional skills, right? One of the things that I saw young people struggle with regularly in their first year is how to take care of themselves. This is not just for our neurodivergent folks, this is for everyone, right? And there are a lot of life skills that we expect young people to learn very quickly, all by themselves, with no instruction, no help, while they're in university. And that's a big ask, right? So if there was an opportunity to kind of have some space to develop and strengthen some of those life skills first, so that you already have a better idea of how to take care of yourself, right? And then you go into an academic program, you're much more likely to succeed because yes, you're being challenged by the academics, but you're not also being as challenged as how to take care of myself and make sure that my needs are met as a human being, right? So there are many, many benefits to a gap year, but I really focus it on these three things because these are the things that it would be hard to find any other opportunity in other points in life to give you the time and space to do that in a supportive environment. Okay. Now, this is a question that I'm sure CanGap gets all the time. I get from my clients all the time. How will I structure my time? Right. And while there are so many variations of it, right. And the reason why I think having many variations is important because there is no one right way that works for everyone. Tools and systems that work for me may or may not work for you, and vice versa, because our needs are different at the end of the day. However, throughout all of the different variations that I've heard of or tried, one thing that I know for sure is that we want it to be flexible and consistent, right? Those two things can actually happen together. Flexible in the sense that, we're not going to insist on a specific way. We're going to allow ourselves flexibility to try different things. And when we try different things, it's not with the expectation that it will be a forever thing. Maybe you do like a trial period of a certain type of schedule, see how it works for you, right? Maybe you're trying a specific, organizer app to see if it helps you, right? Or if you're trying a specific program, for example, where you learn specific skills, usually like boot camps and things like that, they're like a specific period of time. So it can be flexible when you do something like that. Consistency is important because our brains do tend to function a bit better when it knows that there's certain things that you can rely on, right? So that's why having structure when you were in high school was helpful, right? We might not have loved how it was, but in a sense, it did give our brains something to rely on so that we don't have to worry about what our days or weeks are going to go because you kind of knew what would be coming up. So with these two themes, I would say that these are the 5 things to build into that bigger plan. So the first one is like, it's connected to our vision, right? We want to set clear goals. And you've probably heard this many times, teachers talk about it when they're talking about like goal setting and things like that. But it's hard to reach a goal if you don't know what it actually is, right? Setting clear goals can also be difficult, particularly for neurodivergent folks. I myself have ADHD, so being able to plan and organize just in my brain is very hard because my working memory just doesn't hold a lot of information at one time. So this is where seeking support through like a coach or a program like CanGap can be really helpful because you have a whole other brain that's helping you externalize some of what you're thinking and be able to kind of like piece it together and Tetris it so that it is something that makes sense, that is feasible, that you can do. Oops, go back. Here we go. Daily routines are also important, right? So again, previously when we were in school, right, knowing when school starts dictates when we got up, had our breakfast, commuted to school, that kind of thing. We knew kind of when lunchtime was going to be because that's already set in our schedule. And we know when after school is going to be and what that looks like. We have those routines because of external structures that we participate in. But during a gap year, if you're not participating in things that require you to be awake at a certain time, that require you to go to sleep at a certain time, who's really holding you accountable? So this is one of those things where setting some sort of daily routine, even if you are on a break from academic things, right? A daily routine in general is very healthy for us humans, right? Because again, when our brains know that there's something to anticipate, something to rely on, we can relax a bit more. Because if we're using up all of our attention and energy worrying about what's coming up next, then we're really not going to get much else done, right? So even if you don't have a lot of tasks in a day, making sure that we stick to like a daily routine so that your body can feel at ease, that'll help you make better use of your gap year. Similar to that, I also include weekly planning, right? So what I mean by weekly planning is that, again, being flexible. When it comes to like being in school, you kind of know what you're doing a semester at a time or even a year at a time. It's just like dictated for you, right? And trying to plan that amount for your gap year by yourself, that period of time, that's a really long time to plan for, especially when there's so many unknowns. How can you really know what's happening to you 4 months from now, for example, right? If you're in school, you know that, okay, yeah, 4 months from September, it will be December, I'll be doing final exams. So there's some predictability there. Whereas in a gap year, the structure doesn't look the same. So what I suggest for my clients to do is to scale back the period of time in which they're planning for. So let's do week by week planning, right? So this gives you an opportunity to at least say like, okay, this is going to be the day when I'm going to do groceries. This is the day when I clean the bathroom. This is the day when I go study at the library. And this is the day when I go to my group or club that I'm in. So you just kind of know what you are going to do week by week. And that is enough, right? You don't have to know a month down the line. You don't have to know a year down the line. And that's kind of the point. Because again, we want to give ourselves the flexibility to slot things in as opportunities come up. What's also really important in terms of doing this type of planning and creating the structure for yourself is to ensure that you are also building in things that are not necessarily like, you know what, I'll just cut to the chase. You want to build in fun time. I cannot stress how important it is to have fun time in any experience, let alone like a gap year. The reason why that's so important is that I'm not a neuroscientist, but I work enough with neurodivergent clients to be able to say this, and I think this also applies to neurotypical people. Your brain just does not have the capacity to be go, 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 and only focused on school or only focused on work, right? Long story short, that is one of the best recipes to hit burnout. And we talked about how not ideal the experience of burnout is. In order to make sure that we are experiencing something that's actually going to benefit us, we have to make sure we're actually doing things that we enjoy. That counts for the that does count for the professional and academic skill building pieces. Of course, do things that interest you, but also make sure that you are still participating in hobbies.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to do that. You're right.
Hi, I think someone's on mic. Oh, there we go. So you want to make sure that you're building in time that also fills your cup, right? So whatever are the things that you are doing that interest you or things that you want to try out, make sure you ask yourself, like, is this interesting to me? Am I going to have fun? And if the question is no, I'm not going to have fun, I'm not saying don't do it, but maybe think a little bit more as to why don't I think it's fun? Because once we understand why we think something is fun or not, we can make better decisions down the road as to what we include to make sure that we are keeping balance in our schedule in terms of the activities that we do. Alongside that is regular check-ins, right? So this could be regular check-ins with CanGap if you participate in the program. It could be regular check-ins with a mentor or another trusted adult, your parents, maybe friends who are interested in your experience. The reasons why check-ins are so important is that it is one of the things that we can do to combat that sense of social isolation, right? It's a way of connecting back to the outside world or the people outside of your gap year experience to get some input from them, right? But it also gives you an opportunity to reflect and also get feedback along the way, right? So it also helps with accountability too. It keeps you tethered to the rest of the world, right? To kind of combat that isolation that we can feel. Okay, so in terms of how to make friends, so these are the things that, again, are always important. We always want to think of ways of like how we want to stay socially connected to people. But this is more of, this is a task that we have to think about a little bit more when we're taking a gap year, because for people going to post-secondary, there's kind of like a built-in, like, because you're going to be going to school with other people, like making friends is kind of built into that experience. So in terms of how to make friends outside of that path, right? And these are likely things that many of you are already doing. And so what I'm saying is you're on the right track, keep doing it, right? Participate in online communities. Online communities specifically about the things that are interesting to you or about the experiences you're having, right? There are many online communities about taking a gap year as well, right? You'll be part of one if you are in the CanGap program, and you can also be connected to other people in other programs around the world as well. It is important to stay connected with people who are going through similar experiences as you, because that kind of creates some of that peer cohort experience that you are used to, right? And there are many different ways of doing that too. So I'll leave that there. I know that those of you who are students or parents of students, you've probably seen your student do this. There's many different ways, many different types of online communities that you can be a part of. Groups and clubs are something that I will talk about all the time, because they are basically excuses to go and do things that you like with other people who like them, right? And that's kind of similar to volunteering as well. Groups and clubs, why I think that's so important is because when you are part of a group that is specifically like, yep, we're this group of people that do these things, it gives you a sense of belonging. And that is so important when combating the social isolation piece, right? When you go to a university or a college, you can say that, like, I belong to that community, I go to that school. When you're taking a gap year, because it's a more abstract and nebulous entity, it's like, where do I belong? Like, what group am I a part of? Which is why seeking out groups and clubs to be a part of is so important, right? And if it interests you, if this is something that you like doing, get involved in the group or club, right? You can take on a leadership role and organize things for the group or the club. And that is another way of having a meaningful impact that not only gives you that sense of belonging, but also can be part of the skill development. And I'm going to lump in volunteering with that as well, right? Volunteering is an excellent low stakes activity. And I really stress the low stakes part, because a lot of times we do try to do activities that are really high stakes. And those might be the things that drive anxiety and uncertainty at times. Whereas with volunteering, it could be a way to kind of start experimenting and dabbling in something, see if you even like it. How does it make you feel, right? It might be something that you're already doing. I know I definitely volunteered a lot when I was in high school, and it did help inform some of my interests and what I wanted to pursue when it was time for me to go to university. Okay, I recognize that we're in a little bit of a crunch, so I'm going to do my best with the next few slides here. So with these activities, because this is a very Googleable list, right? I'm going to let you take a look at them here. These are the very typical things that someone might think of in terms of what to do when it comes to a gap year. And this is not an exhaustive list, right? There's lots of different things. These are just the ones that I found that a lot of people would name in terms of the things that they want to do. Please do not see this list as a checklist that you have to do all of this, right? In fact, I would go back to what I said at the beginning with the vision. The best decisions you can make in terms of the activities is be focused in what you want to do and why you want to do them. Do they serve your vision? Are they going to meet your goals and build the skills and give you the experiences that you want? And there's no right or wrong way combination of any of these activities. The other thing too is that you could try something and maybe you wanted to do it all year long, but maybe you tried it and it's not for you. That is totally okay, right? There's not a lot of other like experiences in life where we normalize trying something, and if we don't like it, we just stop. This is a year for like kind of experimenting to see what is going to be suitable for you. So that's totally okay here too. All right. This has a lot of text, but do not worry. This is part of the recording. This is also part of something that is easy to look up online. I think I can share my slides after today's presentation. But the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about executive functioning is specifically for our neurodivergent folks. Executive functioning is something that many of us struggle with, right? And it is also the exact reason why taking a break before going into post-secondary can be really helpful, because it gives us more time to develop all of these executive functioning skills. You can take a look at what's on the slides here, and you could probably think of really easy examples of like, yeah, I can see why that applies to an academic environment. I can see why this is important to someone who wants to work a job, right? These are also the reasons why planning a gap year can also be challenging, right? I talked about how one of the challenges is the lack of structure, right? And as neurodivergent folks, if we don't have structure, that can be something that is tough. But that's not because of ourselves as a character flaw or a moral failing. It's literally like one of the things that our brains struggle a little more with, right? So I mostly wanted to put this out here just to validate for everyone that experiencing challenges when thinking about something as nebulous as this, that's very normal, right? And I would say that these are things that are challenging for people to think about, even if they weren't neurodivergent. Righty. Okay, so here you see on the screen are some examples of tools that we at Blue Sky share with our clients. I am in no way endorsing any of these products. We get no kickbacks from them. This is simply like from my experience working with clients and seeing what their needs are and recommending them different tools to try. So while you see the logos of some resources here, I am also not saying that these would necessarily work for you, right? Because different tools offer different functions, they therefore can meet different needs. And that's part of why exploring during a gap year is so important. And so one of the things that I would encourage someone thinking about a gap year is to actually try different tools. Maybe you try, a different organizer, for like a month, see how it goes, do a trial run, right? And that's what a lot of my clients have ended up doing. And they figure out different ways to implement the functions of these different tools. Some of them prefer for it to be like gamified, right? That's what Habitica is great at. The whole thing is like a really fun, cute little game. Some people like, visual timers, right? Timo is great for that. some people, they want to if you're autistic like me and you see the connections between all the things that you can do and you want to do it like a project management style, right? Trello and Asana are great for that. Literal companies use these as their task managers for their teams. And Notion can also be really helpful because it kind of combines organization with journaling and reflection, right? So if you like to write and create, this could be a really good option. See how all of those kind of have their own pros and cons. So I do really encourage trying out and exploring different things to figure out the best tools for you. It's also totally normal to like different tools for different phases of your life, different aspects of your life, right? Okay, so like I've been saying over and over again, but because I've been speaking so quickly, giving so much content, if you take away nothing from this presentation, I really want to send you home with this, right? While there is no one right way, there are better ways that can be more suitable for you. And that is the most important thing, is to find what's suitable for you. Okay, thank you again so much for being here for my presentation. I think we're a little bit over time, but I am good to stick around if folks wanted to ask some questions. This is Blue Sky Learning's contact information. We are based out of Toronto, but we do serve clients nationwide and even internationally because we are a virtual clinic. We offer coaching, counseling, educational consulting, and I would say that our niche is working with neurodivergent folks. I am neurodivergent. Many of people on our coaching team are neurodivergent. And I would say the majority of my clients are neurodivergent themselves. And so one of the really nice things is being able to work with people that have that shared experience. When I was looking for a coach for myself, that was one of the challenges. And that's why I'm proud to be a part of Blue Sky, being able to, be the person that I wanted to support me and hopefully being able to support other young neurodivergent folks out there. Thank you so much. I'm also just going to pass the mic very quickly over to Dana, who's also the founder of Blue Sky, to add something as well.
I'll add something very quickly. Thank you, folks. Michelle, thank you for having us today, and everyone in the audience who stuck around past 3 o'clock. Thank you for the extra 4 minutes, and we'll be hanging around for a bit longer. I'm Dana, she, her, and I'm the founder of Blue Sky Learning. And Anika, that was so lovely and beautifully put for all the folks who have all the questions, I'm sure, at this point. So we're both just really emails or phone calls away. So Michelle's team offers 30-minute free consults, and Blue Sky 20-minute free consults, which usually run into 30 anyways. But here we are. So I would like to just jump to if Anika, you could screen share onto the website out of curiosity, if you got that for us. I just wanted to note some of our events that Blue Sky hosts. So if you have a child or you're a parental guardian trying to figure out what your child can do during a gap year, we have some really cool events, and most are free. So they're online and virtual, so they're Canada-wide, where folks can meet other neurodivergent friends or, expand networking, professional development, colleagues, and whatnot to get some info. So we have co-working hours from May to August, every Wednesday and every Thursday. And what's a co-working hour? It's really a bunch of folks signing online, letting me and a group of Fanshawe students who are volunteering with us this summer to let us know what you're working on. So if they have a task, could be as simple as dishes or laundry or getting back to emails. A lot of our young folks are super stressed with having to respond to text messages and emails and can get really far behind. So we have co-working Wednesday and Thursdays. This is where a lot of folks share their goals for the 1 or 2 hours that they hang out with us, and we make sure they stay on track. Really low stakes. You can just register and you log in with no need for a camera or a microphone. So you just share in the chat what you want to work on. So we get a lot of different populations interested in this. We also run monthly support groups ranging from autistic support to neuroqueer supports. But our biggest one every month is the Toronto Neurodiverse Social now. So we're trying to expand across Canada as we start. But if you are in the Toronto area, please let your young person or young adult check out our socials every month. It's a great way to meet in person. So just had to plug that a little bit. I know we're over time. So Q&As, let's do this. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anika. Just echoing what Dana said, lots of really great content there. And you kept kind of referencing or going back to like if you are participating in a CanGap program. So for those of you who are on our email list already, you've kind of heard us dropping hints that something is coming. We currently offer a program called Gap Year GPS. And this program is an accountability program. It is a community building program. Basically, it's your resource for support throughout your gap year. And we typically have neurodiverse youth joining us in there, but we are going to be launching a specific stream of this program, same content, but just with facilitators and coaches who have lived experience. So folks like Anika would be on that roster, making sure that you have the support that you need throughout your gap year. And it's very specific. And Anika was touching on all of the things that would happen in that program. We would guide you on that journey that you're on and make sure that you feel good about every step along the way, while meeting some other really cool people. And I think that's part of what life is all about. So we're just so excited to be launching that. We have a grant application in to make it free. We have not heard back yet. So you're going to have to stay tuned on that. Our goal is to make it free if that funding can come through. If the funding does not come through, we are still going to be offering it, but we are going to have to add a little bit of a surcharge on that to make sure that we can cover all of our expenses. So stay tuned, whether it's going to be free or a nominal fee. My fingers are crossed that it will come through, but would love to have all of you join us. You guys are clearly excitable people wanting to get involved, and we would love to be there along that journey with you. I'm not seeing any questions popping up in the chat, but I'm going to give you one more opportunity to pop those questions in. And I'm actually going to stop the recording so that it can be a little more anonymous if you have very specific questions that you don't want on the recording.